Greetings to all. Welcome to Takshasila IAS Academy. Ee roju manam we are with Additional Director General of Police SB Bagchi garu, 96 batch IPS officer. So presently ee roju we'll be getting the inputs for UPSC interview attending candidates. So greetings sir.
Thanks.
Sir, what are the basic traits that the UPSC interview panel expects in the aspirant who is attending the interview?
So, the first thing that the interview board expects from a candidate is the candidate should not lose his or her cool at any point of time. There will be questions which may be totally unexpected. The interview board also knows that you are not expected to answer every question perfectly, but how you are tackling those unexpected questions? Are you getting unnerved, nervous, or are you maintaining your calm? For example, it is possible that a totally unexpected question is thrown at you and you become so nervous that after that, even if otherwise you would have been able to answer a question properly, because you got nervous, all subsequent questions you couldn't handle. So, why this trait is very important? It is because as an IAS, IFS, IPS officer, you are expected to face challenging situations. Someone who gets unnerved in the face of a challenging situation is likely to take wrong decisions, and a decision taken by an IAS, IPS or IFS officer, or say IRS, any other service officers, it is not going to only affect 1, 2, 5, 10 people. It may adversely affect hundreds, thousands or even lakhs of people. Therefore, you have to maintain your cool, come what may. So, whether that trait is present in you or not, the interview board is trying to find it, ascertain it. Therefore, even if you cannot answer a question properly, you should not get unnerved under any circumstance. Besides, the second trait that the interview board is trying to find in you is whether you are able to deal with people properly. Let me explain. As a civil servant, you are expected to manage your superiors, your colleagues, your subordinates, the people, politicians and media. These are the broad 6 heads where you have to manage people. In the interview board, you are managing only the people who are in the board. Are you able to manage them properly, tackle them properly? Are you entering into unnecessary arguments? Are you behaving in a manner that a future civil servant is not supposed to do? All these are very important. Your personality traits, that is the second important thing we should keep in mind. Third thing that the interview board will like to find out is whether you are aware of the basic things that a civil servant must know. What are the basic things? Number 1, your optional subject. Number 2, what is happening around you in your neighborhood, in your district, in your state, in the country, in the world. You are not expected to know everything. Someone rightly said, you have to know something of everything and everything of something. If you are expected to know something of a particular topic that is very relevant today and you don't know, it is still excusable. But a number of questions are being asked of different things that are relevant today, and you every time say sorry sir, sorry ma'am. That shows that you are totally unprepared. You are not knowing what any civil servant is supposed to know, having basic awareness. So, that feeling is detrimental to your interest. One additional point I would like to make: a civil servant should be very balanced in approach. You should be, a civil servant is expected to be unbiased, impartial. We all know that earlier IAS officers had huge judicial functions. Even now, executive magistracy is lying with IAS officers. To be just, fair and reasonable, to uphold the principles of natural justice, that is something that every civil servant is expected to do. That is why interview board will try to find out whether you as a candidate, as a future civil servant, is just in your approach or not. How will they find it out? I will tell my own example. I had appeared in 1996 civil service examinations. I am from West Bengal. At that point of time, left front government was in power. They asked me a question pertaining to land reforms in West Bengal. The question was such that it could reveal my political inclination, whether I was inclined towards the left or whether I was anti-left. I could have revealed my political inclination through that answer, but I chose to word my response in such a manner that it appears to be balanced, impartial to the interview board, so that the board will not think that this man is incapable of taking just and impartial decisions. Today, also there are a number of debatable topics, controversial topics, where there are two sides and both sides have very strong and effective arguments. As an individual, you are entitled to strongly believe in one school of thought. But when you are before the interview board, please remember, give a balanced answer, both in favor what the proponents are telling, what the opponents are telling, and then you can conclude in a manner that will still portray you, show you as a balanced person. So, these are the few things one should keep in mind while preparing for the interview and on the day of actual interview.
Sir, every question or every event will have some positives and negatives. Do we have, is it, but few aspirants will have certain opinions on few aspects. Do they stick to the positive or negative, whatever they think? Should they stick to their own point, or should again give the negatives on those topics also? Sir, if it is like on the topics of reservation system, or in the recent judgments of reservations in even promotions, so if it is in those topics, how should they answer?
Definitely, it is again a very controversial topic where there are strong opponents and strong proponents. You are definitely expected, even though whether you are from the unreserved category or from the reserved category, you are expected to tell the arguments both in favor and against that issue.
Okay.
So, had I been in the interview board, I will expect that the candidate should be able to tell me about both sides, and then ultimately the candidate is entitled to his or her opinion, but he should know about both positive and negative points.
Recent issue of Ukraine and Russia, what kind of questions can we expect from the UPSC board, sir?
See, in this, in the context of this war, what are the questions that are expected? Number one, what are the concerns of Russia? What are the concerns of Ukraine? What are the concerns of India? Why Russia went into war? What do you think will be the possible outcome of the war? What are the implications of this war on India, rest of the world? Will this war open up new avenues, new opportunities for any country? Example, India. Is this war going to create problems for any country, or already creating problems for any country including India? What happens if this war continues for say a few more months? What is the likely fallout? Do you think that this war may lead to World War III? Do you support India's stand if US, UK and the Western countries continue to exert pressure on India to come out more openly in support of Ukraine and more openly denounce Russia? Should India do so? What do you think about the possible response of China in the days to come if more casualties follow? Do you think Russia is going to use nuclear weapons as apprehended by the Western countries? Do you think it is possible, feasible, practicable for NATO or for other Western countries and UK and US to send army or air force in support of Ukraine? Why are they not doing it till now? What are the arguments which are preventing them from coming out more openly in support of Ukraine? What has been the outcome of the sanctions till now imposed by US, UK and the other Western countries on Russia, Putin and Russian bureaucrats and politicians? Will such sanctions and even more increasing the sanctions, such sanctions in future, have any impact on the attitude of Russia? Already there has been a humanitarian crisis because so many people have left Ukraine and taken refuge in the adjoining countries like Poland and far beyond. What do you think about how UN should tackle this humanitarian crisis? We saw that UN failed to stop this war. Has UN become irrelevant? Has UN become redundant? What do you think should be done to make UN more relevant so that such wars can be prevented in future? So, these are different types of questions that may be asked. So, all these questions, if you analyze, you will see they are not factual. I am not asking how many people have crossed over to Poland or how many people have died in Ukraine. We want to know your basic understanding of the geopolitical situation, the nuances. What we want to ascertain is your analytical bent of mind. So, that is how this is just one example. All such incidents you should show in the few sentences that you state as your answer, your analytical bent of mind, not only your awareness, not only your knowledge, but how you are analyzing the facts in order to present a viewpoint that should be acceptable to the interview board. They may agree to disagree, but they must agree that you have proved that you have understanding of the situation and ability to analyze the present situation as well as the future outcome.
Thank you, sir. And what should be the attitude of the aspirant on the day of the interview? How it should be streamlined?
See, on the day of the interview, do not go through books, do not study your optional subject, your GS and all that, but definitely go through all the newspaper headlines, the current affairs, so that you are not caught on the wrong foot if some question is suddenly asked from that day's newspaper. It shows that you are keeping yourself posted of whatever is happening around you. Also go through the editorials, because editorials, as we all know, they try to analyze the facts, the incidents, and try to give a viewpoint. It may be for or against, but definitely that will help you in analyzing events and incidents that have recently happened, both nationally as well as internationally.
Sir, how can we take answer the questions with respect to the legislature versus bureaucracy?
See, there is in our constitution the basic structure doctrine that was promulgated by the Honorable Supreme Court in the Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala case. And separation of powers is a basic structure of our constitution that cannot be amended. Separation of powers means separation of powers amongst judiciary, executive and legislature. If we look at the history of separation of powers, it was first talked about by Montesquieu, France. We all know about the Renaissance that originated in France. So, Montesquieu had talked about this doctrine of separation of powers, and it is very important that the separation of powers is maintained to prevent any country from slipping into an autocracy or dictatorship. If the executive assumes the powers of the judiciary and the legislature or vice versa, dictatorship will result. Now, a question may be asked, can we have watertight compartments? The answer is no. We all know about the history of PILs, public interest litigations, where the executive has failed to discharge its duty. The court has stepped in and instructed the executive or the administration to carry out works which they are supposed to do, or to stop the executive from carrying out works that they are not supposed to do. Even under Article 226 of the Constitution of India, the High Court, jurisdictional High Court, can be approached by any citizen, and under the Article 32 of the Constitution of India, the Supreme Court of India can be approached by any citizen for violation of fundamental rights, and there, by issuing the writ of mandamus, the court can direct the executive to do something it is mandatory for that executive administration to do, or not to do something that it is not supposed to do. So, this is where legislature is judiciary is overstepping its limits and directing the executive to do something or not to do something. Similarly, if we come to the issue of delegated legislation, where legislature is unable to legislate because it is too time consuming. Today's welfare state, so many voluminous laws regularly have to be framed, keeping in view the requirements of the country, of the polity. Some are very technically complicated issues. So, the legislature has to utilize the expertise of experts, of the executive people, to frame the rules, regulations and bylaws of different laws. Here, the legislative function is delegated to the executive. What I mean to say is, there are umpteen examples where this doctrine of separation of powers is not adhered to strictly, but that is only for the purpose of the benefit and welfare of the citizens of a country, where such small variations are permitted, so that the concept of welfare state can be realized, people can get justice, and things can move faster.
Very nice, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for the valuable time and decisions.
Thank you.
Like and subscribe Eagle Media Works.